Hello. I thought that I would take the time to go through the smart board since we didn't get through the whole thing in class today. And so I am going to speedily go through the first little part for those people that were absent. Okay. So which of the following is not part of the state? We said federalism because the other three are and add population to it. Okay. Which of the following theories explains why the U.S. was born? We were born out of a revolution. When a leader believes his power comes from God. Okay. So what I'm doing here is reading through the questions. You hit pause and then answer yourself. When the people voluntarily give powers to the government in exchange for certain protections, that's a social contract. Remember, that's kind of like an election, and like Australia, India, and so on. We never did this one, but remember, it's John Locke. Which of the following is the type of government that still exists today? We still have autocracies. Oligarchy, we maybe could say that because China's kind of like that. When we elect representatives to act on their behalf, that's a democracy. We can find all of these in the United States. The only one that's not a characteristic, and if you change the word struggling to favorable, you will have all the characteristics of democracy. The geniuses. Okay, so I am going to have you take a look at all of these. Bourgeoisie and proletariat, law of supply and demand, equality of condition, little individual initiative, free market system, big government. United States, Japan, Australia have this. Supports individual initiative. Most European countries are this. Free education, medical care, and transportation. The government is the economy, a command economy. Government and economy are merged. 66% of higher taxes. The market and the government are separated. And equality of opportunity. So if you hit pause right now, divide up where they would go. And in just a second, I'm going to hit solve so you can see where everything goes. Okay. Equality of opportunity. Market and government separated. Law of supply and demand. The free market system supports individual and the United States that way. But remember, we are a mixed market system, which means that we have a little bit of capitalism and a little bit of government regulation. And depending on who you talk to, a little government regulation is actually a lot of government regulation. Socialism has 66% higher taxes. The government and the economy are merged. In a socialist government, you have free education, medical care, and sometimes transportation. Most European countries find themselves. There's a little individual initiative just simply because you don't make the money that you do in a capitalistic society. Remember, communism is a very command economy. That means the government commands how much is made, where it's made. The government and the economy are the same. Bourgeoisie and proletariat. Bourgeoisie are the workers. I'm sorry, wrong way. Bourgeoisie are the capitalists, spit, and bourgeoisie, proletariat are the workers. Equality of condition, which means everybody should have the same. No haves, no have-nots. Have the same houses, have the same kind of cars. Everybody's the same, and then that will eliminate conflict in your society. Remember, communism is a dying economic system. Socialism is growing very quickly. All right. So this part on your study guide, take a moment and see if you can match everything to where it needs to be. This is the section that deals with our founding fathers. Now, a lot of this on the naturalization test is in the history part, but these things are in the government part. Okay. So if you want to match them up, just take a moment and hit pause. And now I'm going to hit solve. Okay. Just to remind you that we had a very first national constitution was the Articles of Confederation, and it was a very weak form of government. It did not allow you to enforce laws. It couldn't tax, so they had no money. So George Washington called for a convention to be held in Philadelphia, the same place that we signed the Declaration of Independence. George Washington was elected the president of that convention, and James Madison showed up with all pretty much the heart of our Constitution. Remember that there were many, many different kinds of compromises, the Great Compromise, the New Jersey Plan, the Virginia Plan, we had the Three-Fifths Compromise, how we came up with the Electoral College, all of those things came out of that, and they signed it. The problem is that there was no Bill of Rights. So two groups of people formed. You had the Anti-Federalists who were against it because there was no Bill of Rights, and the Federalists who supported it. And an agreement was made, another compromise was made so that they would sign the Constitution. The Anti-Federalists, the Federalists, went on to become our very first political party, now known as the Democrats. Okay. Don't forget that you need to know the date of our country, and that was September 17th, 1787. Article 1 deals with the legislative branch. Article 2 deals with the executive branch. Article 3 deals with the judicial branch. The Bill of Rights are our first 10 amendments. So the First Amendment deals with speech, religion, press, assembly, and don't forget petition. On your study guide, the Second Amendment deals with the right to bear arms. The Fourth Amendment is called our Search and Seizure Amendment. That's where we talked about probable cause and reasonable suspicion. You must know the differences between the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, because the Fifth Amendment is the rights of the accused. You have the right to a jury, you have the right to have the face witnesses, and most importantly, you have the right to remain silent. The Sixth Amendment are the ones that you have as the right to a fair and speedy trial. The fair and speedy trial also means that you have the right to an attorney. The Eighth Amendment is freedom from cruel and unusual punishment. The Ninth and Tenth Amendment are often referred to as the Liberty Amendments. And they say that anything that's not mentioned in the Constitution is kept by the people. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves. And remember that the importance of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment said that the Bill of Rights and all matters of the Constitution apply to state laws. In other words, just because it's a state law doesn't mean you can ignore the Constitution. That's huge. Okay? The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. I think I skipped one. The 18th Amendment took people's right to drink away and gave it back. And then the 19th Amendment gave them the right to vote. Remember the differences between the articles and the amendments is articles are in the Constitution, and there are 7 of them, and the amendments are added to the Constitution, and there are 27 of them. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. We went on, and then we talked about the Great Seal. Remember, the Great Seal has the eagle and the pyramid in it, and E pluribus unum is basically our motto: form many into one. And so you need to know for your test what the different symbols mean. Remember, this is the eye of providence, and this is the eye of providence, or this is the eye of God watching over us, which also is what that says. The God is watching us. This is New World Order. Remember, every brick here on this side stands for a citizen, and it's an unfinished seal because we're never done building our country. 1776 is across the bottom. To the other side, the more familiar side, the eagle, because we can rise above the storms. Shield, we no longer need England. We're looking towards the olive branch because we look towards peace first, but we also look towards the arrows because of war. All right, so now we're going to compare the House and the Senate, and I have kind of a classification thing for you. So I'm going to slide these up. So you got districts, many powerful committees, voted at large, confirms treaties based on population, which chamber has many rules. Every state has 2, few rules, 435. This chamber has a speaker. There's 100 members. President of the Senate is the vice president, controls the purse strings. Gerrymandering, which remember is drawing lines according to districts according to party line, confirms appointments and filibusters. So a good idea would be right now to hit pause before I hit solve. There you go. So the House of Representatives is based on population. It has many rules. It controls the purse strings. because it's dealing with districts, that's gerrymandering. Anytime you see the word districts, you're going to deal with the House of Representatives. There's a Speaker of the House. Every state has two, few rules. Remember, the Senate has unlimited time to debate, and there's 100 members, but they're voted at large, which means across the state, and they confirm treaties and appointments. All right, so how many districts does Iowa have? We have 4. We live in District 4, so we are part of District 4. Okay, who is presently our representative? That would be Stephen King. Who do we not directly elect in the 2016 presidential election? Sorry, this should say, I did not change this. This should say Donald Trump. We do not directly elect the president. Remember, we tell electors how we are going to vote, but it takes the Electoral College to put that into place. Okay? Okay, this is weird. Oh, if the president and the vice president are killed together, the Speaker of the House is next in line. The Democrats presently control the Senate and the executive branch. Again, this is some errors I need to fix. All right, let's try this again. The Democrats control the House and not the executive branch. Man, let's try it again. Control the House. So that's it. Whoops, now I deleted everything. The Republicans control the Senate and the executive branch. I don't know. Why can't I use? I am on the struggle bus here. I guess this is the way I have to do it. To keep going, most bills die in committee. Remember, 90% of all bills die in committee. Standing committees are permanent, select committees are temporary, and you guys didn't need to know that because I decided that that wasn't really that important. And finally, the Library of Congress is known as America's library. Sorry that that was way more work than it needed to be. All right, so and here are those terms that we had at the end. See if you can match those up. What is trade between states and foreign governments? Trade within the states. A demand to be released from arrest. What protects an inventor's work? What power to tax, borrow, or prosecute counterfeiters? What stretches the delegated powers? What protects a writer or a songwriter's work? And Article 4, powers that are reserved to the state. You want to try to do that before I hit solve, hit pause now. Okay, here's the solve. Interstate versus intrastate. Remember that if they cannot prove why you've been arrested, they have to release you. That's called habeas corpus. I almost said porpoise. A patent is an inventor's work. Money powers deal with the power of taxing, borrowing, and prosecuting. Stretching the powers of government is called the elastic clause. And protecting a writer or songwriter's work is a copyright. And your reserved powers, that's where we get federalism. Okay. All right, another kind of matching. So again, let's read through them and then hit pause so you get a chance to match them. The power to declare a law unconstitutional, first Tuesday following the first Monday in November of even-numbered years. We the people. Every branch has its own specific or delegated powers. Powers are shared between the federal and state governments. Those famous investigations like watching over the other branches. The system created by the Founding Fathers to watch over every branch, and the mission statement of our country. All right, if you want to practice for a while, hit pause. Otherwise, here's the solve. Judicial review is the power to declare a law unconstitutional. The federal election is the first Tuesday, blah, 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 blah. We, the people, demonstrate popular sovereignty. Separation of powers is one of the most powerful, one of the reasons our Constitution has lasted so long. Sharing that power between the federal government and the state governments is called federalism. Watching over the legislative branch is called oversight. When they watch over each other, it's checks and balances. And the mission statement of our country is the preamble. I strongly urge that you know the preamble. Okay, here comes another one. So what's the difference between the legislative and the executive branch? Now, there's a couple of these that we did not go over because with my reevaluation, I did not really think we needed them so much. So I will slide those out of the way. So here we go. Enforces the laws. The EOP or the cabinet is the executive branch, remember. They are the ones that carry out the laws that are passed by Congress. The Library of Congress is part of the legislative branch. So those are two that you didn't need to know. Four-year term, natural-born citizen, a naturalized or natural-born citizen. A naturalized citizen means you can be an immigrant. Headed by the president, must be 35, must be 25 or 30. Headed by the speaker, meets in the White House, authorizes all the money, budgets the money, meets in the Capitol building. Okay? So, enforces the laws. That is the executive branch because the legislative makes the laws. Executive branch, you have to be a natural-born citizen, whereas in the legislative branch, you can be an immigrant. The legislative branch is either 2 or 6 years, whereas the executive branch is 4 years. The executive branch is headed by the president, but the legislative branch is headed by the speaker. The executive branch, you have to be 35. In the legislative branch, you're 25 or 30. The executive branch is in the White House. The legislative branch is in the Capitol building. Budgets the money is the legislative branch, and authorizes the money is the executive branch. Okay. Let me show you the editing so that you can maybe take a look at it. So the legislative is on one side. Hopefully that's enough for you to take a look at. Some of these, again, if we never talked about the GPO, remember, these are things that I've done in the past. So, okay, here's another one. What constitutional amendment outlines presidential succession? Okay, 21st. I should have went with my first instinct. Oh man, I'm embarrassed now. Good thing it's not on your test. Which of the following is not a responsibility of the president, of the vice president? He does not serve as the head of the cabinet. Phew, I knew that one. Who is the only president not to ever go through the election process? Gerald Ford never ever became president the normal way. He was, Richard Nixon had a vice president by the name of Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was let go because he did something illegal, and President Nixon appointed Gerald Ford. President Nixon did something illegal, and then Gerald Ford became president. Okay, here's a really big part of the test: is what is the order that you go through in order to be elected president? I would strongly urge that you would pause this and say, okay, I think I can put these in order. Okay, so I'm going to hit solve right now so you can see them in order. Isn't that cool? You declare your intent, you start campaigning, you have a political party, and you suddenly you're starting to be called the nominee. You're no longer called the candidate. And the election day, and the media announces the winner of the popular vote. Remember, the president has not been chosen yet, because until the electors meet in the second Wednesday after the Monday in December, they send their votes to the president, they send their votes to Congress, and on January 6th, the official presidential candidate is announced. Our winner is announced, and on January 20th, they take their oath of office. Okay? So you need to know the difference between each of these, the branches of government. Oh man, I still have Barack Obama. Obviously we didn't. We have a couple of things. You know what? I better fix this. Look. All right, we're almost done. So where would you classify these? Donald Trump, appointed for life, interprets the laws. Nancy Pelosi enforces the laws, elected through the Electoral College, makes the laws. The Supreme Court, controlled by the President, jurisdiction, controlled by Congress, Library of Congress, a 4-year term, the Cabinet, 2 or 6-year term, and John Roberts. So if you want to take a moment and see if you can figure out where to classify them, I would hit pause now. All right, Congress makes the laws. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House. The Library of Congress is part of Congress, 2 or 6 years, and it's controlled by Congress. Okay, enforces the laws. Electoral College, Donald Trump, he has a 4-year term. He has the Cabinet, and he's controlled by the President. The Supreme Court interprets the laws. It's appointed for life. John Roberts is currently our Supreme Court Justice, and they deal with the issue of jurisdiction. Okay. Here's a nice little summary of that. Well, I'm hoping, other than the federalism at the bottom of what is a federal or a state responsibility, I think we've gone through pretty much a lot of your study guide. Maybe not every single thing, but a good portion of it. If you have any questions, make sure that you come in and talk to me. I will gladly give you the answer. Sorry for kind of the craziness of the project, but I thought maybe this would be helpful. All right, good luck tomorrow.